A Mauser, you know, is considered to be a much better gun than a Mannlicher, in a general sense. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
That is, it shoots better and it shoots faster, doesn't it?
Well, it shoots better. It's a more accurate weapon.
And a Mannlicher, Italian Mannlicher, on the other hand, like the one involved in this case, is actually considered by those who are experts in firearms as a piece of junk. Isn't that true?
I would think so.
Thank you. That piece of junk that we just looked at cost about $21. Isn't that right, sir?
I really don't know, sir.
And so far as you're concerned, at the time, that gun that you saw in the stacks was a Mauser, isn't that right?
At that point in time, yes, sir.
And it wasn't until after a certain gun in the possession of the FBI suddenly turned out to be a Mannlicher that it changed from being a Mauser to a Mannlicher. Isn't that true?
I would say that's an accurate statement.
Yes, thank you.
In terms of citable examples, this is probably the best example of complete and utter incompetence in the identification of different firearms. You have this gentleman misidentifying a frame of a firearm, and then that frame that they come up with is also wrong, and it's actually a 6.5 Carcano. You can't get more basic in this case than it being a 6.5 Carcano. So for folks that don't collect firearms, don't participate in talks on curio and relic related items, they don't understand the difference between firearms from one or the other, the space weaponry, bows and arrows, they're sort of throwing these things in together as it's all a weapon, it's all the same thing. Well, that's a firearm, they're all firearms. That's not how guns work. That's not how anything works. I'm going to draw a sword here. Shing! Oh, God. Anyway, so I've pulled up a page here of Ferdinand Mannlicher because I'm seeing a lot of extremely, and it's willful ignorance on the part of the JFK research community, and I'm going to cover this in another video about the ongoing issues with that community and just the completely laudable nature of investigatory processes in addressing this case with any seriousness whatsoever. And again, just this segment that I'm doing here talking about firearms is itself enough to show that this case has been mishandled over and over and over again. And this community, despite having technological support all around us, continues to fail miserably. So if anyone wants to follow along, I'm over on the Rock Island auction site. And what I'm probably going to do is I'll put on a screenshot of what I'm looking at here. But Mr. Mannlicher, he's an Austrian, grew up in a military family, engineer by trade, liked to dabble in firearms development, studied at the Vienna University of Technology in the 1860s. For those of you who aren't aware of the time period, that's American Civil War time. So pretty neat when you think about it, the advent of bolt action actions being worked into existence during the period of time where muskets and all that, artillery and those sort of things were still being worked on. Smoothbore firearms, rifling, all that stuff's becoming commonplace. So it says here, Mannlicher was a talented engineer, developed a passion for firearm innovation, had the Austro-Prussian War ongoing. Mannlicher, they got an example of his design here. What he's really known for is the creation of the N-block clip. which is, a system that even up to the M1 Garand, it would in part involve taking the rounds, putting them into the clip. You insert the entire clip into the weapon, and when the weapon runs dry, the clip is expended through the action. In the case of M1 Garand, which is more well known than a Mannlicher, M1 Garand, it would pop out of the weapon. With the Mannlicher design, it drops free. Yeah, he continues here. There are numerous designs coming off the Mannlicher. The long gun version, they've got use in Austria-Hungary, World War I. Different variants and versions developed. 1884, 1890, 1895. I'm moving over to Mr. Carcano. That's Salvatore Carcano. And again, the purpose of outlining these things is to identify the fact that Mannlicher is one. That's an actual family name. Carcano is another family name in a different country. Okay? And you have the Italians, which are like every other nation in that period of time, developing new weaponry. And the Carcano family comes up, well, specifically Salvatore Carcano comes up with these new designs. And the 1891 is the one that's the most known. And then, of course, you have the variants that come later, 24 and 38. I have a model 38 Carcano. Those are chambered in and used 6.5 Carcano, which is, again, a far cry because it is a completely different weapon than the Mannlicher. And again, I don't want to get way off the topic on this specifically, but from a Current Relic guy perspective, this topic has got to be one of the most irritating things in the discussion of the JFK assassination. I mean, I could go and rant about this for probably an hour, hour and a half or so. But you have people that if you put like an MP5 in front of them, they'll say that's an AK-47. If you put an AK in front of them, they'll say, oh, well, that's an AR-15. And what we're looking at is an application of knowledgeable thought processes. If someone puts an AR-15 in front of you, let's say, the idea would be to look at the make, manufacture, and model and break it down that way. So you have various different manufacturers out there in the world, various different types of firearms. So you can start with the most basic of category. Is it a rifle? Is it a shotgun? Is it a pistol? Right? And you have to find out, what the intent was of the inventor at the time when they did that. And then you break it down from there. So of a rifle, you have a manufacturer. What did the manufacturer do? Well, here's what the manufacturer did different. This is Model 1, whatever Model 1 might be. Okay? This is where they came up with, this is what they did, this is the caliber, this is the intent. Model 2, what did they change? They learned from Model 1, so they changed something. Okay? This is what we're talking about when we're talking about different makes and models and manufacturers. You could take this a step further to make this a more simplistic example and talk about cars, car dealerships. Right? Is it a Ferrari? Is it a Lamborghini? What model is it? Okay? You're not going to go and look at a Ford Taurus and say, I mean, it's a nice car. You're not going to look at a Ford Taurus and say that's a certain kind of Ferrari. Nobody's going to do that. And again, unfortunately, in the community of JFK research specifically, I mean, this is just this poignant issue that keeps coming up again and again and again, and it's not even new people. This is the topic that comes up with folks who've been studying this for 40 years, 50 years. And again, it's obvious looking at this 1980s mock trial in which Oswald is found guilty in the mock trial. I mean, it's completely laughable. If you don't have a solid foundation then nothing's going to come from that. Okay? I mean, I don't understand. If you don't know what the firearm is, you can't possibly begin to extrapolate anything from the scene, the evidence that's there. I talk about that in other videos, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, getting off topic. 1867, our friend here, Salvatore Carcano, patents a brand new design for rifles and carbines. 1891, and guess what? That's the model year. His original design, he gets that promoted to the Italian government as adopted as their small caliber rifle, a primary weapon superior to other models at the time. So, of course, you know, due to the fact that he designed it, he built it, he acquired the equipment and the tools to make it, he got his name inscribed on it, Carcano. And again, for whatever reason, we're adopting, and this is not just this era again, this is going back to clearly the 60s, 80s and 60s, with this consistent misidentification of firearms, which comes across to me as, again, willful ignorance. You've got people who are looking at a long gun and they say, "That's a Mauser," and their eyes sort of glaze back in their head and roll back. It's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And again, unfortunately, this is a flagrant issue that, not what I'm going to do is I'm going to post an example video here, but you've got cops, you've even got some military and various people who they don't understand what they're talking about. And again, the whole court case with Oswald, it's evidence of that. So thanks for listening. I want to make another video at another point, but this is, I'm not getting any more arguments on the subject. I'm just going to probably just take this video and post it as a response to anyone who wants to sit there and say, "It's a Mannlicher Carcano." Like, you're not thinking, or you don't have a willingness to learn. If you've seen me post this video in response to you, it's because I think you're silly and you're unwilling to learn. And I'm hoping you listen to this video, look these names up, and actually learn something. There's numerous calibers in the discussion of the topic. What Oswald used was 6.5 Carcano. It's not debatable. That's the weapon that he had. Those are the shells that were found, the brass casings. That's the magic bullet size, 6.5 millimeter. Okay? That's what he used. I have no idea why this is a topic of debate in anything related to JFK. All right? Have a good day, everybody.
To be very frank with you, I stumbled over it two times, not knowing it was there.
Just went right by.
Went right by. And Mr. Boone was climbing on top, and I was down on my knees looking, and I moved a box, and he moved a carton, and there it was. And he in turn hollered that we had found the rifle.
Well, when did you first get a full view of the gun?
When the crime lab brought the gun out, after they had gone over it, well, I could see portions of the gun while they were doing partial investigation of it there in the building.
What kind of gun did you think it was?
To my sorrow, I looked at it, and it looked like a Mauser, which I said it was, but I said the wrong one because it just at a glance I saw the Mauser Action.